Prop 19 isn't just a tax law. It's actually helping reshape the inventory because people are really thinking and considering whether they want to keep or sell a property.
Hello and welcome to the Savvy Agent Podcast. My name is Anthony James, your host for the show, and I am joined today with a very special guest. Say hello to Vanessa Tanner, top agent out of Solano County with RE/MAX Gold. How you doing today, Vanessa?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining me, and I'm excited for our conversation today. We're going to talk some high-level market overviews for Solano County, and excited to have you on the show, Vanessa, to kind of speak into that as that local market expert. Before we get to it, though, I want to kind of set the stage with a little bit of your background. So if you've never met Vanessa before, she has a very experienced background in finance and accounting, approximately 20 years in that field. And she brings all that great professionalism and insight and expertise into her real estate career to really help serve her clients, their best interests, their needs, and make a great impression in how she approaches the real estate market in her local market. So I'm excited, Vanessa. Are you fired up for today?
Fired up for sure.
All right, excellent. Let's dive in. Let's go ahead. And I kind of want to hear from you now. So why don't you kind of give the audience just a little bit more context and background to some of the things that you've done before you got into real estate and how you're segueing that into your real estate career?
So previous to jumping into real estate full time, I was in accounting for, a long period of time, just about 20 years or so, with my most recent experience as a director of accounting. And so what I think has really helped me in real estate is being able to fine tune and pay attention to the details. And not just that, but being able to really explain. And, for the most part, where first time home buyers really hold their hand through this process so that they get it. It's nothing like being able to make sure that who you're working with really understands the left and the right. So that's been one of my biggest pleasures in this process in jumping into real estate and really making a difference.
I love hearing that. And that's a great segue to kind of our first topic ahead here with you on this episode, is to talk about the first time home buyer, just the home buyer in general. And specifically, what are you seeing in Solano County as maybe one of the biggest hurdles or mindset challenges for the modern buyer in Solano County today?
What I'm seeing at time in, time out is affordability. That's such a big factor when I talk to home buyers and I'm sitting down and I'm going through the process and talking to them about their needs and their wants. What they really want to know is how affordable is this home for me? So, and that's the biggest hot ticket item with buyers right now, especially with the interest rates not wavering too much, right? In Solano County, what we are seeing is that your average home price is about $560,000. And we're looking at the interest rates, they're teeter-tottering and they're kind of going back and forth, but we're still looking at low sixes. So what does that look like in terms of, well, what am I going to pay every month? And now these are just rough numbers, but you may be paying about $4,000, $4,050 on a sale of a $550,000 home with 3.5% down. Of course, that's subject to your credit score and anything else that the lender runs in the background to be able to determine what that is. What we're also seeing is how long are homes sitting on the market? The homes are roughly in Solano County sitting on the market for about 60 days. So what does that mean for a buyer? The market's still pretty soft, right? It's still technically a seller's market, but buyers do have the latitude to be able to take a step back and think about their options because there are so many options out there. So being able to educate the buyer in knowing that, there are options out there for them and there's a lot of room for them to be able to leverage and negotiate.
Yeah, fantastic. Well said. And I know one of the things that you and I talk about frequently is this affordability challenge for home buyers, especially in the state of California, Solano County, obviously, median home value, like you said, right around $560,000. And again, that creates one of those barriers, especially with interest rates hovering low sixes to 6.5% roughly, right? And so when we talk about ways to kind of break through and actually get into home ownership, I know one of the things that clients and the consumers really are looking at is down payment assistance and ways that they can kind of break into the market without a whole bunch of extra money out of their pocket. So can you kind of speak to the down payment assistance options that are available for today's home buyers?
So we currently have the CalHFA program, and there's two main types where there is your deferred loans, and that's, deferred. So clearly you pay that at a later time. But there are some grants, right? And with the grants, they don't necessarily get paid back. Now, something that was a big buzz in the last month and a half, 2 months, is the Dream for All program. And the beauty behind that is that the Dream for All program is a shared appreciation model. It does help cover a down payment where you can also pay that back later. And it is a shared appreciation. So you would have to share when you go to sell the home a portion of that appreciation. So there are limited funds. There was a deadline application for that in March. I believe it was March 16th. So I am certain that many of those applicants are probably receiving news on whether or not their loan application or their down payment assistance application has been accepted. But that's a really great program. A lot of buyers think that they need 20% down, and that's not really the reality. The programs that can dramatically reduce what they need up front are out there, but it's a matter of finding an agent and a lender, perhaps, that really know what they're talking about in the local and state market.
And just to kind of recap, if I heard you correctly, right, there's a couple of different options out there. There's this deferred payment model where you receive the down payment assistance. There's no payments on it. It's essentially like a silent second, and then it's paid off when you go to sell or refi. And then the second model you mentioned is like this shared appreciation model, which, as you mentioned, the Dream for All program, where you can get bigger down payment assistance up to 20% if you can qualify or get into that lottery system and be one of the lucky chosen ones. But when you go to sell, you're giving away that same percentage in shared appreciation. So there's a little trade-off there, maybe more down payment, but you have to pay for that when you go to sell or refi and that shared appreciation model.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Vanessa, one of the questions I would ask is very specific to the amount of funds that are available to a home buyer that's looking to get one of those deferred payment kind of silent second or junior mortgages through CalHFA. What are you seeing as like the maximum amount that the buyer can actually access?
It's about 3 to 3.5%. We're thinking about first-time home buyers here. So the program's really geared for them, but the maximum is 3.5%.
Okay, so 3.5% on that deferred payment. And then we mentioned with that shared appreciation, potentially up to 20% with a maximum of about 150,000 in down payment assistance, right?
That's exactly it.
Fantastic. So what I'm hearing you say is there's options out there for home buyers to kind of get into the market, try to minimize how much out-of-pocket expense they have for down payment. So even if a buyer is thinking, man, I don't even have a down payment yet, come talk to Vanessa, talk to your local lender, and let's see if there's a program out there that can help you get into a property sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
Love it. Okay, let's keep the conversation alive specific to, some of these affordability challenges. And I'm going to kind of look at the other side of the coin now. We're going to talk tax base. So I know there's many existing homeowners that would potentially like to sell and relocate and move and buy something else. But oftentimes there's a couple of factors really. If they've got a low interest rate, they're kind of feeling handcuffed by, a 2.5, 3.5% mortgage rate in exchange for today's mortgage rates. But another big one that we see a lot in the state of California specifically is the tax base. So in that example where somebody owns a property or bought a property, say 30 years ago for $200,000, and now that property is worth $800,000 and they want to go buy something else, but their tax base on that is like against $200,000 when they purchased it, right? And so a lot of folks that want to buy become very reluctant because they're looking at how much increase they might see in their tax basis. So there's a program for that, is my understanding, and it's called Prop 19. So Vanessa Tanner, if you can kind of share with the audience today a little bit about how Prop 19 can actually help these folks out.
That tax base that you were speaking to is a big deterrent for many folks right now, especially in this market. But with Prop 19, what that allows folks that are 55 and plus to do, be able to transfer their tax base. So exactly what you said, a home that they may have purchased at 200 grand, and they're looking to maybe downsize or just relocate, right? Let's say they had kids that moved across the country and they want to go relocate across to the East Coast. Well, that will help them do is be able to maintain their tax base and hold on to that tax base instead of taking on what that new tax base can mean to them on a $600,000 home, right? So the beauty behind that too, as well, you dig a little deep and you start really thinking about this. I was thinking about what about those folks that inherit a home from a parent, right? And they're now 55 plus. What does that mean for them? If they make that home their primary residence, they then obviously have that benefit as well. Once they, let's say they decide to sell that home in 10 years or 7 years, and they are in that 55 plus bracket, then they can also, it's like an inherited tax base for them. So just thinking about the different options that folks have, but it's really great for, folks that again are 55 and plus and are a little apprehensive about making that move. And what we're seeing is Prop 19 isn't just a tax law. It's actually helping reshape the inventory because people are really thinking and considering whether they want to keep or sell a property.
Yeah, and such great information. And, I'm encouraged by the conversation because I think there's so much, confusion in our market or reluctancy to make a move because there's just maybe not enough understanding of some of the options that are available. So I love that you're kind of highlighting a couple of these great programs. We've got down payment assistance, we've got Prop 19, and there's other loan programs as well, right? Can you speak real quick to the veterans in the marketplace that there's special programs for veterans and first-time home buyers we've already touched on, but go ahead if you can kind of speak to those programs.
Oh, absolutely. There is that VA loan program where what that empowers our veterans to do is be able to purchase a home with zero down. So that's big. It's a very, very big win for veterans to be able to find that affordability and be able to get into a home. We did touch on the first time home buyer program, but again, just to emphasize, a lot of folks think that they need 20% down on a purchase of a home, but with the first time home buyer program, you only need 3.5%.
Yeah, fantastic. Such good information. So now let's kind of shift gears, right? So we've got information, we've got knowledge. We know that we don't need a bunch of money down necessarily. We have options there. We've got Prop 19 to help us from a tax basis. Now it's time to go shopping, right? So I link up with you, Vanessa. We're going out into the market. What can I expect as a buyer just from the competitive landscape? You kind of touched on the fact that the market has softened a little bit in Solano County. You've got the median home value around 560,000. Time on market right now for listings, if you're selling a home in Solano County, is around 55 to 60 days. So if I'm looking at that data, I'm thinking, okay, there might be an opportunity for a buyer with some softening dynamics in the marketplace. So what can the buyer expect today when they link up with you to go shopping for a home from a competitive standpoint, multiple offers, the ability to negotiate, things like that?
Well, first and foremost, what I like to do is sit down and talk to my buyers about the process so that they know it like the back of their hand, right? So we go through what does it look like to start from start to finish with the pre-approval process first, because that to me, what I like to say about a pre-approval is it's like your golden ticket to go shopping for a home, right? Making sure that you're working with a lender to get your pre-approval so that we can really determine what homes we're looking for you. And understanding then after your pre-approval what that true monthly payment is. And then knowing obviously the programs that we talked about that you qualify for. And then we can get into the nitty gritty of those homes and what you're looking for out there. And yeah, the market has softened quite a bit. So the longer a home sits, obviously a little more leverage we have on a negotiation tactic, on credit and what we can do there. There's a big buzz that I saw on social media, let's say about a year and a half, 2 years ago, about credits for rate buy down. So yeah, absolutely. That's a big strategy that is still very strong in today's market. With a home sitting as long as some of them are sitting, sometimes you see homes sit longer than 60 days, and that gives leverage to a buyer to be able to negotiate some of those credits, such as closing cost credits for a rate buy down, and be able to bring down that interest rate just a little bit more.
What about like the process, right? Are there like certain fees that these buyers need to be aware of from, any like hidden fees or things that happen during the escrow that's going to cost the buyer money that they should be aware of?
Something that I do like to talk to folks about is those fees, right? What are we looking at in the big picture? What are we looking to jump into once we find a home that we want to submit an offer for? What does it look like during that escrow process? And yeah, I always recommend inspections. That is a cost at the buyer's cost that they would have to come out of pocket for. We're always talking about inspections and how important it is for a buyer to spend on those. It might feel like a lot up front. More times than not, you're probably not going to spend more than, $1,000, more than $750 to get your general home inspection, your pest inspection, your roof inspection, in many cases, a fireplace inspection as well. It's a small dollar amount. In the grand scheme of things, it's a very small dollar amount for a big peace of mind, right? Because we want to know what you're stepping into once this deal closes. You don't want to find out that the AC was busted and we didn't do our due diligence to inspect it. And now you're coming out of pocket $7,500, $11,000 to replace. So that's definitely something that I like to talk to my buyers about. And then, of course, an appraisal. So an appraisal is another expense during the escrow process that they can expect to come out of pocket for, as well as closing costs. So closing costs within your escrow process, any property taxes, and of course, insurance. That all gets taken care of during that escrow process so that when you go to close, that's the delta that you're coming to the table at the end of the day to be able to close on that deal. You're coming in with those closing costs. So when you hear closing costs, it includes your property taxes, your insurance, and title company fees.
Okay. And I'm just curious if you have this in your market in Solano County, if you're seeing this, but are there certain communities, maybe newer builds, new home communities that have special tax assessments like Mello-Roos and things like that? Are you seeing that in your marketplace?
We are, especially in Solano County. We do have quite a few new builds that are going up in neighboring town, and they have that Mello-Roos tax assessment that's added. They
Okay.
do.
So the Mello-Roos tax, that can be really important to understand. And that's why I want to bring this up in this conversation with you, because if you're a home buyer and you are shopping and you have a, max purchase price based on a, down payment, and then that's going to spit out, a monthly payment, Mello-Roos tax can actually kill a deal depending on how much it is, right? And so it can be common in some markets to see Mello-Roos tax, two, three, $4,000 additional in taxes annually, which can obviously change the monthly payment outgo, which can offset some of those DTI ratios for buyers. Are you seeing similar numbers in your market?
Absolutely. Yes to the numbers. We're seeing a thing. In regards to Mello-Roos, a lot of home buyers hear it and they're like, what is it? I don't want to pay for it. But what it really entails is in a new build community, it really helps pay, the tax towards all the community improvements, such as your fire stations that they had to build, right? Let's say it's a brand new community and there is no fire station nearby. Well, it goes to help pay that. It goes to help pay the new school that they have to build because, you're out in an area where there isn't a nearby school, the roadways, the lighting, the maintenance, etc. But that's really what the Mello-Roos entails, what that tax goes towards paying.
Yeah, such good information. And really just again highlights the importance of working with a local expert that understands the dynamics of the market, understands special tax assessments like Mello-Roos, and knows how to research those bonds and those assessments to make sure it's not throwing off or potentially killing a deal. So again, I want to encourage, anybody that's watching this that's considering a purchase in the Solano County market, when you're working with Vanessa, you're going to get that level of expertise, knowledge, and research that's going to really help guide you throughout the way. So fantastic. Vanessa, as we wrap up our episode today on the Savvy Agent podcast, what else would you share with home buyers or sellers in today's market in things to look for and reasons why they should consider hiring you?
More than anything, hire a local expert, someone that really knows the neighborhoods, that knows the area, and that can really walk you through the process from start to finish so that you really understand it because confidence is key. And without the knowledge, it's really hard to be confident in such a big purchase.
Yeah, well said. Thank you so much for joining me. You've brought a wealth of knowledge to just a very short episode here on the Savvy Agent podcast. I'm excited for you as you continue in your great, fantastic career that you're building here at Remax Gold. working in the Solano County market. And I also understand you're bilingual. Is that true? This is where you rattle off some Spanish, yeah?
Sí, soy. Hablo español. Llámame, por favor.
That's fantastic. All right, Vanessa, thank you again for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Enjoy your day, and we'll catch you next time here on the Savvy Agent Podcast. Take care.